Hello and welcome to the Libero Magazine. My name is Robin Baker. I'm one of the vloggers here at Libero Magazine. And this month is all about finding balance. And in this video, we're going to be talking about finding the balance between being someone that's a people pleaser and being someone that's assertive. And these are two very, very big ends of the spectrum, right? There's a lot of gray in between. And from some, I'm a recovered anorexic and obsessive compulsive exerciser, so I struggled with eating disorders. And for someone like me, and I know many other people that have struggled with eating disorders, being a people pleaser is a huge part of being in my eating disorder. And I'm sure in other addictions as well, that being a people pleaser is a huge part of being in the addiction. So people pleasing really is, right, I want to make sure everyone is happy so I'm not judged. I don't want conflict. I want to make sure people like me. I want to feel like I fit in. I want to feel like I belong. And so there's this sense of, I need to change who I am in order to make people happy. So there's that end of the spectrum. And then all the way on the other side, right, we have assertiveness, particularly the kind that's very forceful, that's very direct, that's very decisive, that's very like, this is the way it is, this is the only way it is, and, I'm right, no one else is right, and, it's kind of almost putting up a block. There's no room for shifting. Everything is just this way and very forceful. And finding the balance between these two things is extremely tricky. And it's something that I've struggled with a lot in my recovery. I went in with my eating disorder as someone that was very much a people pleaser. And then I started my recovery mainly as someone that was very assertive. And I kind of did that 180 shift. And I know a lot of us in recovery tend to go completely the opposite direction because we want to get as far away from our old behaviors as possible. So today's video is really all about how to find that balance between the two and what it really looks like when we do find balance. So when we're people pleasing, we're not really showing up as our authentic self. We're not showing up with all of our true likes and dislikes. We're not showing up with all of our flaws. We're trying to cover that up. We're trying to fit in and like what everyone else likes and kind of mold ourselves so we kind of blend in and belong to a different group or a group of people. And the more we do that, the more resentful we become, not only of the group, but of ourselves, because we lose sight of who we are. And there's just this icky, yucky feeling that we get in our stomach when we do that over and over and over. And there's this amazing authenticity mantra that Brene Brown uses that talks about showing up authentically. And she says, don't shrink, don't puff up, stand your sacred ground. So when we people please, we tend to shrink, right? We tend to kind of shrink ourselves down so that we can be like everyone else and we can fit in with people and we can have this sense of belonging. Having a sense of belonging is not an issue. It's not the problem. The problem is how we go about doing it. So when we people please, that's kind of the way we abandon ourselves, and it just feels yucky. So kind of a way to move away from people pleasing and kind of move towards that center gray area is to show up as yourself, show up and tell your story, show up and be you, irregardless of what people think, what you think people might think, or what people say about you. And you will never abandon yourself in this way. It's really scary to do that, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And that's why working in recovery and working with, having someone to support you is really important when you're going through this and learning how to actually implement this into your recovery. So it might be like, so say you're with that same group of people and, they talk about, oh, I didn't like this movie. And you can just say, yeah, I actually liked it. And you're not puffing up, you're not, overly being assertive with these people and saying like, what's your problem? Why didn't you like it? I liked it. I don't know why you didn't like it. That's puffing up. It's getting big. It's being assertive. Or, it's not shrinking and people pleasing where you're saying, oh, like, oh yeah, I liked it too. Or I didn't like it either. Yeah, it was bad, whatever. And you're trying to fit in with people. It's standing your sacred ground and being who you are and not needing to put on a show for it and not needing to abandon yourself for it. So the other end of the spectrum, right, is being assertive. So, like, the definition of assertive is being forceful, being decisive, being very forward, just being very direct in your thinking, like there's no wiggle room. And so this is what I was really, really taught, like I needed to learn how to be assertive in my recovery, right? I was praised for being assertive when I was in treatment, and it was a big deal to learn how to do this. And I think for most people in eating disorders, right, we tend not to be assertive because we don't really have a true sense of who we are. We don't really know who we are without the eating disorder. So we people please. We try to fit in. We try to have this sense of belonging. So being assertive is great because it shows progress, because you have to be know who you are, know what your beliefs are, know what you stand for in order to be assertive. So something to remember, that even though we were taught this maybe in our recovery, that yesterday's medicine can turn into tomorrow's poison. So even though, yes, it was helpful at one point to really practice being assertive and implement that in our recovery, moving too far in that direction and not learning how to have that balance and not finding that gray area can really become tomorrow's poison. So something I know I used assertiveness for was to distance myself from people and to kind of put up a shield, to not allow my true self to be seen, because I was still very much ashamed of who I was. I still felt very raw from everything I was going through. And being vulnerable was too difficult, but being assertive was extremely easy because it was my shield. It was my protective armor. And I know a lot of us in recovery grab onto being assertive and use it as a way to numb, as a way to protect ourselves from feeling vulnerable, from being hurt again. But the thing is, and it took me a long time to learn this, the thing is, when we protect ourselves from being hurt, when we try to avoid being vulnerable, and being assertive is our go-to in order to shield ourselves from being hurt and putting ourselves in a place that we might experience pain, we also numb and shield ourselves from happiness. We are not allowed to feel, happiness without pain. You cannot selectively numb and selectively shield human emotions. It's all or nothing. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and feel happiness, and at the same time you might experience pain and sorrow and suffering as well. The thing is, this is all part of the human existence. And when we use being assertive as a shield or a way to avoid being hurt, we also lose out on feeling happiness and true connection with others. So one thing Brene Brown says about this, another authenticity mantra, is show up and be seen. Show up and tell your story. So you own your stuff, you own who you are, you show up as you, and you can never be resentful. You don't have to be assertive to mask who you are, to protect yourself. You are able to show your true self and be vulnerable, but still stand your sacred ground. So that's it. I could talk about this topic literally forever. It's a huge part of my recovery and something that I'm still learning how to find that practice with finding the balance between the two. And I'm sure it's something that you've experienced as well. So I would love to hear feedback. Do you feel like you're still, in that people-pleasing mode, or do you feel like you're really far over into the end of the spectrum where you're being too assertive and you want to find that place where it's kind of like you're able to let your guard down a little bit more? Like, where are you on this spectrum? I would love to hear your feedback. So please leave a comment below and we will answer any questions that you have as well. Again, I'm Robin Baker for the Libero Magazine. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye.